Somewhere right now, someone is lying awake, wondering if they can recover from their past. Somewhere else, someone is holding a steering wheel a little too tightly, wishing they could rewrite the last few years. And maybe you too find yourself at a threshold, uncertain if the way forward still exists. The Stoics remind us that the way forward is always here, and it begins with the simple, steady act of starting again. There is nothing glamorous about this moment. It is quiet, personal, often unseen. Yet it carries a rare kind of courage. To begin again is to face what has been broken and choose to build anew. It does not mean you are without fear. It means you value the path of virtue enough to walk through the storm anyway. The Stoics did not wait for ideal conditions or applause. They began where they stood, with what they had, as they were. This is not about becoming someone different. It is about uncovering who you are beneath the noise, the fear, and the mistakes. A clean slate is not something the world hands you. It is something you claim by your own courage. So if you are weary, begin again. If you carry regret, begin again. If you feel lost, begin again. Not through grand declarations, but through small acts of honesty, steady integrity, and a mind willing to return to wisdom. Every day nature gives us this reminder. The sun rises, the sky shifts, the air changes. Life begins again without hesitation. The Stoics saw in this a gentle but powerful invitation. To start over is not weakness, it is strength. It is the mark of resilience to continue after failure, to rise with dignity rather than sink into shame. Marcus Aurelius, carrying the immense weight of empire, reminded himself each morning, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive." This was not sentiment, it was strategy. Yesterday's regrets have no power unless you choose to carry them. The Stoics trained their minds to release what no longer serves the present, to meet each day not with dread, but with readiness. Yet how often do we imprison ourselves in the past, replaying words unspoken, choices undone, punishing ourselves for moments long gone? We put ourselves on trial again and again, for seasons already finished. The Stoics chose differently. They practiced presence, the discipline of refusing to hand today's peace over to yesterday's ghosts. Time does not return what is past. It only offers this breath, this hour, this moment. And that is enough, if we are willing to meet it with clear eyes and an open heart. You can acknowledge the roads not taken, the mistakes made, the harm caused. But reflection is not imprisonment. The past is a teacher, not a cell. A classroom, not a cage. As long as you breathe, you remain capable of return, capable of redemption. The Stoics believed not in regret, but in responsibility. Not in rumination, but in reflection. Not in endless mourning, but in movement. Character is not defined by the absence of mistakes, but by the response to them. Each fall poses a question. Will you rise differently? Yes, you've stumbled. Yes, you've hurt and been hurt. Yes, you've strayed. But the ability to begin again is never lost to the one who chooses courage. The moment you lay down what no longer serves you, your hands are free to build anew. This is not denial, it is strength. To forgive yourself is not to erase the past, but to walk forward with wisdom. That, the Stoics would say, is a radical act, because it means you no longer fear who you were. You are committed instead to who you are becoming. If you've strayed from your path, if you've drifted from your values, pause, breathe. Remember, no mistake, no silence, no lost time makes it too late to begin again. Begin not because the way ahead is easy, but because remaining stuck is no longer an option. Begin not with perfect answers, but with honest intention. Leave shame behind. It chains you to the past. True courage is not found in being unshaken, but in choosing to rise even while you tremble. There is no weakness in starting over. Weakness is refusing to move out of fear. Strength is renewal. Renewal is the heartbeat of character. The Stoic does not flinch at the sight of his own fall. He studies it, learns from it, and step by steady step rises. Not in denial, not in desperation, but in dignity. The philosopher does not curse the darkness endlessly. He does not sit in ruins, addicted to sorrow. He lights a candle. He takes a step. He makes the next choice. Forward, slowly, perhaps painfully, but forward nonetheless. He does not remain in collapse. He rises from it. He carries only what is useful and leaves behind what poisons peace. This is your day, this moment, the only one in your hands, not yesterday's echo, not tomorrow's illusion. This moment, raw and imperfect, but open to possibility. Stand up, begin again, not for applause, not for recognition, but because your life matters too much to remain dormant. Because though the flame flickers, it has not gone out. Begin again, because part of you still longs for alignment. Because the stillness you seek starts with a single act of courage. Because you know, deep down, this is not where your story ends. You are still here, you are still breathing, and while that is true, so is this. You are not finished. Begin again, for the sake of who you are becoming. Chapter 2. Failure is not final. Failure stings, it humbles, it slows us down. But the Stoics did not fear failure. They feared stagnation. Seneca wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." What feels like a dead end is often only the end of a chapter. The page can turn. The story can continue. When you fail, the ego demands shame. It urges you to shrink, to hide, to retreat. It whispers that you are unworthy, that you have confirmed your worst fears about yourself. But the Stoics would say, failure is not the end. It is the beginning of a wiser way forward. The Stoic seeks something different, not punishment, but truth, not self-loathing, but perspective, not escape, but honest engagement. What happened? What led to this? Which habits, assumptions, or choices shaped this outcome? And most importantly, what must change now? These are not questions meant to condemn. They are tools for rebuilding. Not why me, but what now? Not who is to blame, but what can I do next? Failure itself is rarely the real danger. What breaks us is often what follows: the silence, the retreat, the decision to stop moving. Yes, there are failures that wound deeply, but more often it is not the fall that destroys us. It is the refusal to rise. It is the voice that whispers, "You've ruined everything," when in truth, you've only reached a difficult turn. The Stoics understood resilience, not as a life without hardship, but as the repeated act of standing up again, eyes clear, steps unsteady, but still walking forward with purpose. You are not your mistake. That is not your name, nor your final line. You are defined by what you choose next. If you feel broken, become the one who rebuilds, brick by brick, with honesty. If you feel ashamed, become the one who acts with renewed integrity, even unseen. If you feel lost, become the one who studies the map, asks for guidance, and dares to walk a new road. The Stoic does not fear rock bottom. Why? Because it is solid. Because it is honest. Because when you reach the ground, you can stop pretending. You can begin the upward work. Rock bottom is not a grave. It is a foundation, the lowest point upon which the highest character can be built. Let that be your story, not the one who never failed, but the one who rose again with dignity. Not the one who never wavered, but the one who found strength after being humbled. Let failure become your forge, not your finish. Let it shape you into someone not bitter, but brave. Chapter 3. Begin where you are. We dream of ideal conditions, the right moment, the right mood, the perfect start. But the Stoics rejected that illusion. Life is not lived in perfect conditions. It is shaped in imperfection. If you wait to feel ready, you may never begin. The philosopher begins exactly where he stands. Epictetus was born into slavery. No wealth, no freedom, no comfort. He had no platform, no status, no obvious opportunity. Yet he did not wait for better circumstances. He began where he was, within limits, within hardship. And from that soil grew strength, wisdom, and influence that still endures. He mastered what was his to master, and by doing so, he shaped a legacy. So stop waiting to become the flawless version of yourself you keep imagining. That person may never arrive. And the Stoics would say, they don't need to. You grow by acting, not by waiting. You become ready by doing. Strength does not arrive fully formed. It grows in motion. Virtue is not built by observing from a distance, but by choosing, by acting, by allowing yourself to stumble forward and learn along the way. Growth comes through practice. Strength comes by meeting resistance, not by avoiding it. The struggle is the forge, and only those who enter it are shaped. Life will not hand you perfect conditions. The philosopher does not wait for the world to align. He aligns himself with the world as it is and takes the next step. Whether the sky is clear or storming, he moves. Whether confidence is loud or quiet, he still acts. And in the moments of doubt, there is always a quieter voice reminding him, not later. Now there is humility in this truth. It strips away excuses and dismantles the illusion of the perfect beginning, the myth that one day you will wake fearless, healed, and fully ready. The Stoics understood that this is not how life works. Perfect conditions are rare. What life offers is today, unpredictable, imperfect, yet full of potential. And that is enough. You do not need to be fixed first. You do not need to wait until you feel strong or unshakable. Those feelings are not the starting point. They are the result of having begun. So begin again. Begin here, even in confusion, even in fear, even in weakness, especially in those moments. That is where strength begins to gather, by starting where you are and refusing to remain there, by taking imperfect steps that over time shape profound change. Momentum is not born of mastery, but of motion. Every climb begins at the bottom, with one trembling step taken by someone willing to rise before they feel ready. Do not wait for another place to start. Do not waste your strength wishing for easier ground. Ask only for courage to begin where you stand. Ask for clarity to see that today is enough. Ask for the resolve to take the first step without needing to know the last. And ask for the will to begin again when others would turn back. The rare ones, the strong ones, are not those who had everything. They are the ones who walked through doubt, who answered fear with action, who chose not to abandon themselves when it would have been easy to do so. They are the ones who built a life from a moment just like this, and that choice alone can change everything. Chapter 4. What matters now? The Stoic does not live in yesterday, nor does he lose himself in tomorrow. His strength is in presence. Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." Yet how easily we forget. We wander into the fog of what if and what was. We replay old stories that cannot be rewritten. We plan endlessly for futures that may never arrive. And in doing so, we trade away the only thing that truly belongs to us, this moment, this breath, this chance to begin again. To begin again, you must know where now is. You must step out of the traffic of distraction and pause long enough to ask, what matters now? Not what mattered to the person you were 5 years ago. Not what matters to the crowd watching from the sidelines, whether they cheer or criticize. What matters to your conscience, your integrity, your soul in this moment. To live with philosophy is not to erase past or future. It is to place them where they belong. The past may instruct you, the future may caution you, but neither should govern you. Your strength belongs here, in the choices still open, in the values still within reach, in the character still being shaped. The power of beginning again is not in scattering your energy everywhere. It is in clarity. The Stoics did not chase every opportunity or cling to every loss. They sought the essential. They focused where it mattered. They cleared away the excess from their lives and from their minds. And that is what made space for peace. The Stoics asked the hardest, most clarifying questions. Does this serve my virtue? Does this strengthen my character? Does this align with the person I am striving to become? Begin again, not with clutter, but with clarity, not with noise, but with focus. Rebuild with intention, not impulse. Let each step be aligned, not rushed. Worthy, not convenient. Release the distractions that demand attention, but return nothing. Let go of burdens never meant to be carried, resentment, comparison, the hunger for approval. Begin again, carrying only what directs you toward your soul's true path. Every day is a blank page, a quiet offering. But not everything deserves to be written on it. Not every memory belongs in today's story. Not every ambition still serves your highest self. Some things fulfilled their purpose and belong to yesterday. Some goals, some relationships, some patterns were chapters, not lifelong definitions. You are not who you once were. You owe no loyalty to outdated versions of yourself simply because others recognize them. Growth demands change, and change requires the courage to shed what no longer serves. Choose carefully what you bring into this new beginning. Let it be deliberate, not automatic. Choose as though your peace depends on it, because it does. Choose your thoughts as though planting a garden. Each one will take root. Sow those that build, not those that erode. Keep the beliefs that remind you of strength, not scarcity. Nurture the ones that invite clarity, courage, and calm. Release the scripts that belittle your effort or replay old fears. Choose commitments that align, not entangle. Choose relationships and responsibilities that reflect your values, not your insecurities. Choose only what strengthens you, elevates you, and carries you closer to what is enduring. For there is a truth beneath the noise, a truth steady and unshaken, even when storms return. This moment is your anchor, not a pause between past and future, but the foundation from which everything else rises. Here is where you realign. Here is where you breathe. Here is where you choose again who you will be. This moment is the point from which you steady yourself, redirect, and rise. Treat it as sacred. Guard it from distraction. Fill it with intention. Let it reflect your deepest values, not your passing impulses. Let it carry meaning, not noise. The world will always offer endless stimulation, but meaning must be chosen. Purpose must be pursued. What you choose today shapes who you wake as tomorrow. And who you are tomorrow determines the life you continue to build. This moment is not small. It is the seed of all that follows. So pause. Be deliberate. Begin again. Not out of reaction, but out of decision. Begin again, light, unburdened, and unafraid. Because clarity is here, strength is here, and your future begins here. Chapter 5. The discipline of daily renewal. To begin once is not enough. The Stoic knows you must begin again each day, sometimes each hour. Renewal is a discipline, not dramatic rebirth, but quiet, steady return to what matters. Marcus Aurelius did not write to impress. He wrote to remind himself. His meditations were never meant for others. They were anchors for his own mind, repeated notes to self in the midst of chaos. Page after page, he returned to the same truths. Why? Because he knew the mind drifts. He knew virtue is not won once and for all. It must be chosen again and again. Wisdom is not a possession. It must be practiced, renewed, reaffirmed. Like the breath, steady, vital, unnoticed until it is gone. To renew daily is to acknowledge our humanity. Even strong convictions fade in the noise of life. We forget, we wander, we lose our center. But the power is in returning, and returning again. This is the mark of the Stoic, not perfection, but perseverance. Not flawlessness, but fidelity to the path, even after straying. There is no weakness in needing to return. The only loss is choosing to remain lost when the path is always within reach. Renewal is not about grand resets. It is about simple, intentional pauses. A morning moment to remember who you are and who you wish to become. An evening moment to reflect, not with judgment, but with gentle awareness. A pause in the middle of the day to breathe, to realign, to notice when the drift begins so it does not carry you away. These rituals do not need to be long or elaborate. They need only be sincere. They need to be yours. Anchor your days not in reaction, but in choice. The world will pull, so return to stillness. The world will distract, so return to focus. When the noise grows loud, the Stoic turns inward, not to escape, but to remember. Each return deepens the path. Each pause strengthens the mind's ability to find its way back. With time, you build trust in yourself. You become steady, reliable, grounded. This is not transformation through dramatic gestures, but through quiet, deliberate rhythm. It is not bursts of effort, but the steady patience of returning again and again. The philosopher grows not by chasing reinvention, but by aligning daily. The Stoic does not wait for motivation. He relies on discipline. He trusts renewal. And in the quiet practice of returning, he becomes unshakable. Let this be your way too. Return. Begin again today. Begin again tomorrow. Until beginning again is no longer an act, but your way of being. Chapter 6. Let the past be a teacher, not a prison. To begin again is not to erase what has been, but to place it where it belongs, behind you. The Stoic does not try to forget. He studies, learns, and carries forward what is useful. There is no wisdom in denial, but there is even less in allowing the past to govern the present. The past serves only when it informs today. It becomes harmful when it defines it. Seneca reminded us, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. That ending may have been painful, unjust, or scarring, but it is still over. The question now is, what will you do with what remains? Regret may visit, but the Stoic does not dwell in it. He reflects without drowning. He asks, what was my part? What strength can I carry forward? What must I set down so it no longer burdens me? To begin again is not to forget, but to sift, keeping what strengthens, releasing what weakens. You are not the worst thing you've done, nor are you the brightest moment you've lived. You are not your peaks or your valleys. You are what you consistently choose next. Life is written in the small, repeated decisions that shape who you are becoming. If the past still haunts you, look closely at what remains unforgiven. It may be a younger version of yourself who did not yet know better. It may be the silence you kept when you should have spoken, or the action you took when restraint was wiser. It may even be another's betrayal that lingers like an old wound. But forgiveness is not approval. It is freedom. Forgiveness does not say, what you did was right. It says, what you did will not hold me any longer. The Stoic forgives not to release the other, but to release himself. For to carry resentment is to carry weight that belongs to someone else, and every step forward is heavier for it. So let the past speak, but do not let it shout. Let it whisper its lessons like an elder sitting quietly in the corner of your mind. Let it offer guidance, but never control. The moment the past dictates your worth or defines your limits, it has crossed a boundary. Let it remind, but not rule. Let it guide, but not govern. A guide points the way. It does not chain your feet. The Stoic listens only as long as the lesson leads toward virtue, not paralysis. And once the lesson is received, he moves forward, not in denial, but in clarity, not carrying wounds, but carrying wisdom. To begin again is not to forget. It is to refuse to be confined. Each step forward declares, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to do with it. And with each step, he proves the past may shape him, but it does not own him. He becomes the architect of a future not built from the ruins of regret, but from the raw material of renewal. That is Stoic strength, not in turning away from history, but in mastering it and moving forward with steady, deliberate peace. Chapter 7. Choose a higher standard. To begin again is not merely motion, it is direction. The Stoic rises not simply to escape the past, but to move towards something greater. Renewal is not about feeling new, it is about becoming noble. Each new beginning carries a choice. Will I return to what I was, or will I aim higher? The Stoic does not seek what is easy, but what is excellent. Marcus Aurelius, bearing the weight of an empire, reminded himself, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Let your response rise above what brought you low. Let your action be guided not by impulse, but by virtue. Begin again with standards that challenge you, not to impress others, but to elevate yourself. Not to prove worth to the world, but to honor your nature as a rational, moral being. The Stoic does not measure himself by ease, applause, or outcome. He measures himself by alignment with principle. Begin not to avoid failure, but to pursue excellence. Let your compass be courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom, not comfort, convenience, or popularity. These virtues are not flashy, but they endure. They may not make the road smoother, but they make it straighter. Choose the harder right over the easier wrong. Choose clarity over compliance, even when clarity means standing alone. Choose depth over display, substance over spectacle, character over charm. The world may not understand. It may misread stillness as weakness. It may mistake restraint for insecurity. It may offer shortcuts, ways to appear strong without discipline, ways to be praised without principle. But the Stoic sees further. He knows what is built on shallow ground collapses with time. He builds instead on what lasts: virtue, integrity, and purpose. And from that foundation, he begins again with deliberate strength. What is gained without integrity is lost without dignity. True strength does not lie in domination, but in self-command. Only what is rooted in character endures. Everything else fades, everything else rots. Choose a higher standard. Speak honestly, even when your voice trembles. Act deliberately, even when urgency presses. Think deeply, even when the world pushes for speed. Expect more from yourself, not from pride, not as punishment, but as an act of reverence. Your life is sacred. Your time is finite. Your influence matters more than you realize. Expect more, because settling for less robs not only the world of your best, but also robs you of your peace. Begin again, not just with movement, but with meaning. Let that meaning be anchored in what is worthy of who you are becoming. Let it rise from a foundation so deep that nothing shakes it. Not failure, not rejection, not misunderstanding. You do not need a perfect record. You need a pure aim. The Stoic's aim is not admiration, it is alignment. And from that alignment flows all true progress. Let your new beginning reflect not only your desire to change, but your conscious decision to rise. Chapter 8. Others may not understand. Begin anyway. When you choose to begin again, When you choose growth over comfort and virtue over validation, not everyone will cheer. Some may misunderstand, others may resist. The world prefers the familiar version of you, even if that version was fractured, less honest, less alive. Your clarity, your rise, your growth can unsettle the complacency of others. Your transformation holds up a mirror, and not everyone is ready to see it. Not when you no longer fit the role they assigned to you, the agreeable one, the silent one, the broken one. They may feel threatened. When you stop playing along with their expectations, they may try to guilt you, mock you, or shame you back into submission. But the Stoic does not need external permission to evolve. He does not consult the crowd about his character. He does not ask, will they approve? He asks, is this right? Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, the opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject. The subject, your soul, your renewal, your rebirth, is yours alone to understand and honor. No one else carries your conscience. No one else bears the weight of your inner silence at night. You do. Others may try to hold you to your past. Let them. They may point to old versions of you because that comforts them. But you are not here to fit their narrative. You are here to write your own. You do not need to convince them you've changed. You do not need their permission to grow. You only need to live in alignment with your values. Let your actions speak. Let your consistency be your strength. Let your peace be your protest. The philosopher does not argue his path. He walks it. Each silent step forward becomes a louder declaration than any speech. If the people around you doubt you, mock your discipline, or dismiss your beginning, begin anyway. If they notice your change, let that be your confirmation. Transformation is not betrayal. It is evolution. If they say you are no longer who you used to be, smile, because that is precisely the point. You have shed what no longer belongs. You have chosen to evolve, and evolution always carries a cost. Growth may cost familiarity, certain relationships, certain roles, certain illusions, but what it gives you is priceless. Freedom, self-respect, and a strength that does not depend on applause. Begin anyway. Begin again. Even if no one claps, even if no one sees, even if you must walk alone for a time, even if your silence is misunderstood or your change resented, your life is not theirs to approve. It is yours to live, to refine, to protect. Do not waste precious time waiting for a nod that may never come. Do not trade your truth for their comfort. Every step taken in quiet alignment is worth far more than 1,000 words spoken to be liked. Let them misunderstand. Let them guess. Let them talk. While they debate your becoming, you live it. While they compare you to who you were, you move steadily toward who you are meant to be. Your responsibility is not to meet their expectations. It is to meet your own potential. You do not need celebration to be right. You do not need echoes to be true. And if walking alone for a season is required to live in integrity for a lifetime, so be it. Solitude is not exile. It is sanctuary. It is not emptiness, but a refining fire. A space where distractions fall away and truth rises to the surface. In solitude, the Stoic listens. He clarifies. He reconnects with the quiet voice of reason within him, the voice too often drowned out by the crowd. The Stoic does not fear being alone. He uses it like a sculptor uses a chisel, shaping, removing, refining. He does not chase noise to avoid himself. He turns inward to remember who he is. He strips away the performative and uncovers the principled. For him, the approval of the crowd pales beside the approval of his conscience. The crowd may be loud, but it is not wise. It may offer attention, but it cannot offer direction. What is shouted by the many cannot compete with what is quietly known by the soul. That is the Stoic way, and it is enough. When you live in alignment, solitude becomes strength. It transforms from something to endure into something to embrace. It becomes the forge where clarity is shaped, where silence teaches, and where the noise of the world fades into irrelevance. Solitude offers the rarest kind of vision, the ability to see yourself clearly apart from status, distraction, or judgment. When you walk with truth, the path becomes clear, even if walked alone. You no longer glance left or right for direction. You no longer seek reassurance from the herd. You walk your own path, not because it is admired, but because it is right. You become anchored in something deeper than reputation. You become accountable not to public opinion, but to your own virtue. When you act with integrity, the quiet becomes peace, not punishment. It becomes rest, not rejection. It becomes clarity, not exile. You realize that you are not alone in a crowd. You are with yourself fully, wholly, without performance. You are no longer playing roles. You are living in rhythm with your values. That is where real freedom resides. That is where the Stoic finds his unshakable center. And in that center, there is no need for applause, only the steady rhythm of a life lived in truth. Chapter 9. Resilience is built in the return. The Stoic is not afraid of falling. He is afraid of refusing to rise. It is not failure that defines a life. It is the response. It is not the setback that shapes character. It is what you do when you are down that matters most. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This is the essence of Stoic resilience, not invulnerability, but endurance. To begin again after failure is not weakness. It is the core of strength. It means you were hurt, but you chose healing. It means you were delayed, but not defeated. It means you met the wall, and instead of sitting down, you search for another way forward. The Stoic returns again and again, and with every return he grows stronger, deeper, more anchored. Resilience is not pretending everything is fine. It is not a mask or a performance. It is not about smiling while breaking inside or pretending the storm does not sting. It is about acknowledging difficulty and continuing anyway. It is about telling yourself the truth. This is hard, and I am still choosing to move forward. It is not the absence of pain, but the refusal to let pain dictate your choices. It is about rising each time, not with blind optimism or naive hope, but with clear-eyed resolve, a calm commitment that says, "Even if I fail again, I will keep returning." Resilience is not forged in ease, but in moments when you could quit and don't. It is about refusing to let the pain of the fall speak louder than the purpose pulling you forward. It is about remembering that discomfort is temporary, but the choices made in discomfort can shape a lifetime. The Stoic feels the ache of the stumble, but he does not dwell on it. He does not replay it endlessly. He takes from it what he must and leaves the rest behind. Purpose, not emotion, guides him. Each return is a quiet act of power, not a spectacle, not a declaration, but a sacred decision made in solitude. I will not quit. I will not betray the values I committed to when I was clear-headed and courageous. I will not let difficulty rob me of the discipline I have cultivated. The Stoic walks back onto the path not because it is easy, not because anyone is watching, but because it is necessary. The path itself is the reward, the place where strength is grown, identity is solidified, and peace is earned. When you fall, and you will, return not with shame, but with sincerity. Not with a perfect plan, but with a willing heart. When you forget, remember. Remember why you began. Remember who you vowed to be. When you hesitate, move, not recklessly, but with resolve. When you doubt, stand. Not because fear is gone, but because your values matter more than fear. Do not wait for perfection. You never will. Perfection was never the requirement. Honesty was, commitment was, courage was. Return as you are, dusty, bruised, ashamed, confused. Return with trembling hands and a weary heart if that is all you have. But return. Return because you still care, because something within still longs to live with integrity, even when it is hard. Because the worst thing is not the fall, but refusing to rise when you still can. Each step forward after a fall is a step deeper into who you are. It is a statement of identity. I am not done. I am not broken beyond repair. I still choose the path of virtue. This is proof that life is not about being flawless. It is about being faithful. Faithful to your values, not only when it is easy, but especially when it demands something from you. Faithful to your vision, not only when it is clear, but especially when it is distant and dim. Faithful to the calling that exists in your quietest moments, the one no one else sees, but you know is there. The one that whispers, "You were made to rise." That is resilience. That is what the Stoic cultivates. Not a life without failure, but a will that endures despite it. A heart that admits weakness and still chooses strength. A soul that falls and returns, that learns, that adjusts, that continues. That walks not because it is easy, but because it is right. That is the Stoic way, and it is always available to you, not only in moments of strength, but especially in moments of weakness, especially when you rise again. That quiet, unseen moment is where true power lives. Not the show of force, but the quiet force of will. Not the roar of triumph, but the steady breath between struggles that still says, "I will try again." This is not a performance for others. It is deeply personal, internal, and human. It is for you to recognize. That moment is where character is truly forged. Not in celebration, but in silence. Not when you are at your best, but when you are most uncertain and still choose to move forward. That is when the soul becomes resilient. That is when roots grow deep enough to endure any future storm. Resilience is not about spectacle. It is about unseen perseverance. That is where your future begins anew. Not someday, but now. Not perfectly, but honestly. The future is not built all at once. It is built in small, courageous acts of recommitment, returning to the path even when your legs shake, showing up to your life even when no one else sees it. Begin again, not just because you can, but because you must. Return, rise, begin again, and know that every time you do, you are becoming stronger than before. Chapter 10. The power is in this moment. The Stoic does not postpone life. He does not wait for better circumstances, for permission, or for perfect alignment. He acts now because now is all he truly owns. Marcus Aurelius asked himself repeatedly, "What is in my power now?" It was not rhetorical. It was practical, a compass. All strength, clarity, and transformation begin with what you do in this moment, not the next. When you hesitate, when you stall growth waiting for ideal timing, you surrender your life to a fantasy. The Stoics knew that procrastination is not merely about time, it is about courage. It is the mind avoiding discomfort, disguising fear as strategy. But there is no virtue in delay. There is no wisdom in waiting endlessly to act in alignment with what you already know is true. Power exists here, in the breath you are taking, in the thought you are forming, in the choice right in front of you. It does not reside in someday. It lives in now. In this very second, you are offered a door. Not a door into certainty, but into action, into character, into becoming. You do not need to have everything figured out to begin. You do not need to know how the entire story ends. You only need to begin with what is clear. The next right word, the next deliberate action, the next step forward. Life does not demand perfection. It asks only that you be present. Hesitation whispers, later. Fear replies, maybe never. But purpose answers, now. Power is quiet. It is often invisible. It looks like showing up when no one else does, choosing principle when it is inconvenient, taking one small, courageous act while doubt still lingers. The Stoics understood that most people waste their lives waiting for the ideal. They wait for a sign, for ease, for motivation. Life, however, belongs to those who step into it without guarantees. Do not outsource your future to chance. Do not hand over your agency to emotion or delay. Your future is not an accident waiting to happen. It is a reality shaped by each conscious decision. Own it with presence. Own it with choice. Every moment surrendered to hesitation is a step away from potential. The Stoic does not get lost in abstract intentions or drown in dreams. He returns repeatedly to what is within reach, to what is simple, concrete, actionable, to what can be done today. Philosophy, he knows, lives not on bookshelves, but in how he responds to this hour. This is how life changes, not through dramatic reinventions, but through quiet, consistent alignment with the present. Small seeds of action grow into forests of transformation. True change takes root in decisions, not declarations, in grounded steps, not grand gestures. Ask yourself now, with clarity and honesty, what is in your power? Not next week, not when conditions are perfect, not when you feel ready. Strip it down to the immediate, to the real, to what is already within your control. What can you do today, this very hour, that honors who you are becoming? What choice reflects your highest self, even if no one is watching, even if it will go unnoticed? Because this is the test of character, doing what is right not for applause, but for alignment with your soul. What habit can you return to that restores rhythm to your spirit? What word can you speak that clears the air, sets a boundary? What promise can you make and keep quietly, with discipline? What act, no matter how small, pulls you back into integrity? These are not gestures. They are the building blocks of the life you are shaping. These are declarations of identity. Each is a single thread you can use to weave your way back to the version of yourself you once glimpsed and wished to live into. Not 10 steps, not the whole staircase, just one. One step that echoes your values so clearly that even doubt cannot argue with it. Take that step, make that call, write that page, say that apology, let go of that habit, speak that truth. Begin again, not as a performance, but as a practice, not in theory, not in abstraction, but in grounded, real action. Action is the philosopher's devotion. It is the highest expression of belief. It is how values stop being ideas and become the architecture of life. And this action must be lived, not postponed. The Stoic does not dream of someday. He engages with now, because this moment is not small. It is not a pause between significant chapters. It is a significant chapter itself. It is where your choices shape not only what happens, but who you are. This is the arena where decisions quietly give birth to your future, consistently, powerfully. How you act in this moment becomes the pattern for every moment that follows. Each choice trains your mind and body what to expect of you. Each act of discipline reinforces your self-image. Each return to your values sharpens the clarity of your identity. So choose with presence, not from the residue of yesterday's failures, nor the projections of tomorrow's fears. Choose with purpose, not borrowed from others, but forged from your own conscience. Choose with strength, not by force, but through quiet, unwavering resolve. Begin again, right here, right now. Let the person you are becoming reveal themselves, not through words, not through intention, but through action taken when it mattered most. In this moment, this is where all of it begins.